call to order the Policy and Curriculum Committee. Around 6:30, we are allotted 45 minutes for this meeting. We're going to have presentations, and then we have a few items we have to take care of. We want to make sure that we get through those items. Afterwards, up until 7:15, we will be allowing for the public to make comments. It's not a question and answer period, it's for comments to be made, and that will stop at 7:15. If there are no comments, then we'll just move on to our next meeting. So, turn it over to Chris for the presentation on K4.
Thanks, Paul. I want to thank Doug for connecting us with a gentleman this evening who's sitting down at the table next to Kathy. His name is David Linsmeier, and David is affiliated with a company that has partnered with several school districts throughout the state with 4K. And if he hasn't necessarily partnered, he's been a consultant with some of those school districts as well. There are some big name school districts that his group is affiliated with, and there are also some smaller school districts that he's reached out to and has some affiliation with as well. Dave's going to present some information, and then he's open to taking board questions as well. All right? I can tell you back 10, 11 years ago when I was in a different district as a principal starting the 4K program, the Linsmeier name was in among some of the research and some of the coordination at that particular time when a lot of districts were starting to explore 4K in the area. So it's nice to actually meet Dave face to face and hear what he has to say. So welcome, Dave.
Thank you. I really appreciate your inviting me here. Is that better? Okay. As Chris was saying, I'm the Executive Director of Mary Linsmeier Schools. We operate 3 schools and child care centers in southeastern Wisconsin. I've been involved in 4-year-old kindergarten with the state ever since former Superintendent Libby Burmaster set up a committee called the Forces for Fours. And what that committee did was explore different approaches to 4-year-old kindergarten. They did a lot of research on different types of models. La Crosse was the school district that wanted to put 4-year-old kindergarten in early 2000 and got a big fight from the community. One of the big concerns was there were preschools and child care centers that were very concerned that they were potentially going out of business. So they looked at how do we explore different ways to do it. They took over 4 years of exploration and came up with different models, one being the model that is in most of the school districts, which is the 4-year-old kindergarten provided by the school district in the school district building. Then there is another model that had a school district teacher and sometimes an aide going into a community agency and providing that in a rental type agreement. There are several districts that have that. Another one is a school district teacher coming into a site in the community. The site provides the second teacher to help make it much more coordinated and is provided that way. The third, another model is the agency, the independent agency, providing the teacher and the assistant teacher, and the school district having oversight and providing some of that leadership there. Some districts have 2, 3 different models in one district. Waukesha is an example. So it just depends upon the district and what works best for them. 4-year-old kindergarten was slow to get adopted, but now I think it's up to possibly 90% of the school districts are providing 4-year-old kindergarten. Districts are choosing the way they do it based on their needs, and every district is different. Like Superintendent talked about is we have worked with several districts, and we provided even for small districts like services for small districts like Linsmeier, all the way to large districts like Waukesha. The big thing is should a district do it? There are different thoughts in place. First of all, should a district provide it? Is there good community 4-year-old services for kids out there? A lot of districts look at this and say, well, let's not. I worked with the Mequon School District and the Elmbrook School District. They do not get a lot of state aid. Most of theirs are local levy. And they're saying, I don't want to raise local levy. The people in our community are more affluent, and they have access to good quality 4-year-old programs out there. And both Mequon and Elmbrook have said no. Actually, Elmbrook did a pilot for 2 years and then pulled out and said, no, we're not going to do it. Mequon moved headlong into it, but the school board decided it was not something that they wanted to put on the local property taxes. There's been a lot of research out there. Some of the research says, you know, the lasting effects of early childhood programs is not a long time. And that study was done specific to Head Start programs. It showed that there was a big gain by kids in Head Start, typically are low-income families, and when they enter kindergarten after being in Head Start. But then by 3rd grade, it's not showing a lasting effect. Well, there is also research showing that some of these kids are going into the poorest performing school districts in the nation. And sometimes those districts are not able to keep up with that pace that Head Start does. So these are long-term studies that show that these kids that have been in Head Start, by 3rd grade, they're not any more progressed, aren't any more ahead of those kids. But when they hit high school and college, they have some long-term lasting effects. So districts look at that and say, is this really something that our children need?